What's good, guys? So when I did my second interview, this is where they asked me the most technical questions. I'm gonna try my best to remember the questions they asked me. You guys can have an idea of what interview questions to expect if you are trying to get an IT support specialist role. In my previous video, I gave you guys a list of questions that the recruiter actually sent me to answer after the interview with her. Now, in that initial interview, she did ask me to tell her a little bit about myself. Most companies, they ask you to tell them a little bit about yourself. So, you want to break it down. Make sure you sound professional and very clear with what you're saying. And another thing she did ask was, why did I choose to work with this company? Why do I want to work for this company? This is where you want to make sure you do that research to make sure that you know about the company. So when you're answering the questions, you can add in some things that they do. So they could be like, I see he or she did their homework and they did research our company, read up on our company, and got familiar with it. That's two questions I remember they asked. Now let's move into the second interview that I did with my boss and the project manager. It was a mock interview with the two of them, and both of them was asking me questions. And I think they also did ask me to tell them a little bit about myself so they could get to know who I was or whatever the case may be. And the first question that they asked me was, if I needed to get into safe mode, how would I get into safe mode? But they wanted me to tell them how I would get into safe mode with the computer being on, not by restarting the computer or pressing F10 or whatever key it would be for your specific computer, because computers are different. It's similar to get into the safe mode, but the keys that you might have to press might be slightly different. They wanted me to tell them how to get into safe mode if my computer was already on, and where would I go. I told them I would go into settings, then I would go into system and updates, then I would go into recovery, and then under advanced startup, I would click restart, and that's how I would do it. Now, Windows 11 is a little bit different. Instead of system and security, I think it's just system. But like I said, be aware. Do that little bit of research. You could be on point with your answers for the questions. I got that right. The next question that they asked me was, if a user reported that their computer will not turn on, what would be my first step? How would I troubleshoot this? Now, off the top, as soon as they asked me, I was like, I would check to see if the computer is plugged in, if there's any power coming to the computer or whatever the case may be, because like I said, the computer won't turn on, especially if the user was able to turn the computer on the day before. Of course, that might be the issue. They was moving around, they probably hit the power cord and it unplugged without them realizing, or something of that nature. Like one of the devices at my location a couple months ago, it would not come on. Like it was on the day before and it wouldn't come on, and automatically I knew it was something wrong with the power supply. But first I checked to make sure it wasn't a cord, so I changed out the cord, and then I just opened up the device. Luckily I had a power supply in an old device that was good, so I removed that one and just put it in, and I hooked it up and it came on. That was the second question they asked me. And then the rest of these questions I'm gonna try to remember as best as I can, because it's been a while back and I'm just making these videos because I really want to help you guys and be prepared. And I know interviews can be very nerve-wracking. The third question they asked me was along the lines of, a user is in a coffee shop, but they didn't say coffee shop. What ended up happening was the project manager, he pretended like he was getting a cup of coffee, which it threw me off at first because he has a background. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Zoom and Teams and stuff, where you can pick your background, and when you pick your background, if somebody's passing behind of you, you can't really see if the person's behind. He had one of those on. When he pretended to grab something, I actually thought someone was there with him, handing him something. I couldn't even see if someone was there or not. Before he asked the question, he pretended like he was getting some coffee, and I think he said, can I have a cup of coffee or something like that, right? And then he asked the question and he said, someone reached out to you and told you that they cannot connect to our resources, right? When you check their computer, everything is set up right. Everything is working how it should, right? Now, it took me a little minute only because at first when he asked the question, I didn't catch that first little part that he did with acting like it was coffee. I really honestly thought someone was in his office with him and they was trying to hand him something. With that being said, it took me a little minute, but I started to put two and two together. And I was like, if the person can't, I said, no, I asked, I say, is the person in the office? He was like, no. And I was like, if they're not in the office, then the reason why they're not able to connect to the network or to the network resources is because they do not have their VPN on. You need a VPN connection. Whenever you're working from home, if you guys work from home, then you know that you have some kind of VPN connection, some kind of secure tunnel connecting you to the corporate resources. So in that way, no one is able to hack and nobody's gonna be in the middle of your connection trying to grab information or whatever. Nobody can conduct a man in the middle or some type of attack of that sort, right? I gave them that answer. Boom, correct. The next question they asked me was a network question. It was along the lines of, there are a couple access points in a building and they're holding a party. It's about 250, 255 people, something of that sort, right? People are coming in, but they can't connect to the internet, right? I did get that one wrong. I wasn't necessarily wrong with my answers because the answers that I gave was proper troubleshooting and things that you want to look into. But the answer that they was looking for was DHCP exhaustion, I think, if I'm not mistaken. That's just another question to look out for. And do your research on these things, right? Do your research, look up interview questions, because every company is going to be different. Two questions for sure that I realized that interviewers will ask, and it seems like it doesn't matter which job you go to, is for you to tell them about yourself and also for you to tell them why you want to work for the company. All right, guys, hopefully this video helps you, give you an idea of what to expect when you do your interview, and I wish you guys good luck, and I'll see y'all in the next one.